Let's go, kids. Let's go, Dad.
Come on.
Suprema, just like a roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. As I sit here, singing this jam, I remember a time, the Roots were almost on Polygram. Roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call.
My name is Fonte. And I'm not alone. Because I'm with my peoples. In the comfort zone.
Roll call. Suprema,
Suprema
roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call.
My name is Sugar. I like this setting. But it's not as nice as Kaylee's wedding.
Roll call. Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call.
I'm unpaid bill. I can't complain. It's time for stories about Purple Rain.
Roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call.
It's like ear.
Yeah.
AX is here.
Yeah.
So much to say.
Yeah.
Won't get in the rear. I didn't finish.
Roll call. Wait, what?
Suprema, I was almost done.
Suprema roll call.
Last name Eckstine.
Yeah.
First name Ed.
Yeah.
How'd y'all get me?
Yeah.
Come out of bed.
Roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Suprema, Suprema roll call. Wow.
I forgot to put
That was interesting choice of verses you guys
We did good.
did. Yeah, that was rather amazing.
4 out of 5 ain't bad.
Yo, man. Shout out to DJ Khalil for making this happen, man. Big shouts out DJ Khalil.
DJ Khalil made this happen.
Khalil. Oh,
Okay,
yeah. Shout
that's
out
what's
to him.
up.
That's my fam.
Oh, yeah, man.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Questlove Supreme. We are still live in Los Angeles. How's it going, kids?
Great as always, Dad.
Okay. What was the highlight of your night, son?
Nope. Not again. You can only tell a great story one
I
time.
learned it from watching you, Dad.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, that was a national commercial?
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was some good
They kind of
propaganda.
presented it in a local way, so I thought it was just a tri-state area.
Oh,
Oh,
nah.
no. It's like, don't be a dragon lady.
Wait, what's that?
It's non-smoking. Don't be a dragon lady. Y'all don't, come on, 80s.
See, that's a local joint.
No, we didn't have that one.
It's a
Right.
non-smoking ad. Okay.
No.
We didn't have that
Okay.
one.
See, I thought I got ever watching. I thought that was just a Philly, New York.
Oh, nah, that was everywhere.
That was
one
everywhere.
and the fried eggs is
This is your brain on drugs,
Yeah.
right?
That one, yeah.
All right. So, of course, if you're not familiar, this is Questlove Supreme, the award-winning Questlove Supreme. We won so many awards before. I don't know the other words that we just.
All of them.
We swept at the Schmuckies this year.
Okay, we swept. Let's see. How's it going, Fontigolo?
Doing good, man. I'm making it.
I guess by the time this comes on, the festival will have been
Yeah,
over.
Made in Durham. I think hopefully it'll be over with by the time this shit come out. But October 7th, we did it and it was great.
Nice.
Manifestation.
Steve, Jazz World, how's it treating you?
Everything's good. We got the album you did with David Murray that's available now. It's streaming, and people are gonna vote for it for the Grammys and everything. It's
I was
great.
just having a conversation with a recent Questlove Supreme guest on the show, and he suggested, "Hey, why don't we do a project together?" So that can happen.
Faith Newman.
Yes,
Shout out to Faith. I ran into her like not too long
Faith
ago.
Newman. Yes, I saw Faith Newman at the Nas birthday party.
We're down. Yeah.
Yeah, Pino wants to make something happen, Captain.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of making it happen, Captain, weren't we supposed to make something happen with Bob James?
Yeah. That got postponed. Sorry.
Okay.
But
I love a Questlove Supreme collaboration.
Yeah.
There's been a lot throughout the years.
Let's
You know
make it
what I'm
happen.
saying? Yeah.
All right, Dr. Sesame Street.
I listened to the David Murray Questlove record, and it is awesome.
it's crazy.
It's really good.
I'm still discovering stuff. There's a lot of samples on
It's
there.
really
If
good.
you just isolate Ray Angry, that could be like the next 12 Roots albums right there.
Yeah, it's incredible. 4 platters.
Is that on Apple Music?
It's on.
Yeah.
Yes, it's called
great.
Plum. And what was your logic? I wanted to call it 3 Pleiadians walking to a bar, but
Of course you did.
yeah. But,
Well, we did include that in the
right,
artwork.
one was called. I got to name one song, but it's Steve. So what's our next project called?
Peach.
Okay, and what would that be?
Hopefully, Belial, you,
That's a way to say that name.
Ray, and Doyle Bramhall.
I like that. I like that. Okay, I mess with that.
Oh, and Elena Pinderhughes on flute. So
Okay.
like a quintet.
That's what's up. Okay,
That's
That's
what
fine.
we're shooting for.
Peach.
Yeah,
I got
Peach,
it. Laia, how's life?
Man, listen, it's good. Podcast.
Shout out to
on-
Laia also for really like putting in the hard work and organizing these LA she's sort of our person that targets the guests that come on the show.
Call
and-
that a booker.
Well, I was trying to
You be booking the shit out of it. You book. You
She
book.
just dry humps
go
to
I
ahead.
it.
mean, you call her Booker. That's
You
sort
better
of low
book.
level. I feel
Is
like
it?
I
Producing
feel like
Booker?
you run the shit. You're
I
the
know.
producer.
You're the
Oh,
boss.
that's nice. Me,
Yes,
Jake,
you,
and Brittany. We
you,
are.
You, Jake, Brittany. But yeah,
right.
take your own flowers, Laia.
Yeah.
Take
No,
these flowers.
don't do that.
Take
You
these
know, nah, fuck
dandelions.
that shit. You
You
know,
better
I-
We
book
love
those
you,
flowers.
Laia.
Oh.
Take this love.
Okay, thank you.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I will say that after our awesome Lisa Cortez episode of Questlove Supreme, in which we kind of went through the story of the Close But No Cigar outcome of where the Roots were going to land as far as their major label was concerned. If you don't remember, we had been spending all of 1993, 30 years ago, going in and out of what they call when you audition for a label showcases. Yes, having showcases and whatnot. The very first label that we wanted to sign to, of course, Mercury, Polygram, and we were really excited. They took us out to dinner. We went to like a Black Sheep Legion video set. It was all exciting, and then because of a technicality, we wound up on another label. So I kind of see this as like an alternative universe.
Right.
Yeah. This is like that movie Other Earth. This is an alternative universe in which I am talking to the former president of the label that I never got to sign to. But not that. I mean, as former president of Mercury Polygram, but he's also been a senior executive and also a producer, executive producer and a music producer for a lot of the music that we have grown up listening to, still currently listen to, name it, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, Bon Jovi, Kiss, Whitney Houston, Kenny G, Brian McKnight, Toni. Very happy about that reunion, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the North Carolina show?
Nah, it's not. No, I didn't see the show.
But
I did
you
see
don't
it.
know that in September they did a secret show in North Carolina.
I missed that one.
Right.
I missed that one.
Yeah, they did. But the only thing about like tours when they start, if you don't see the first 3 shows, it's almost guaranteed that they're going to chop the songs in half once they find a rhythm.
Yeah.
So I saw the set list. Of what their show was, and it's way past the Roots in LL. It's like it's damn near 3 hours. Like it's a
They
90-minute.
got bangers, man. Yeah.
Well, they start with all the classic filler, and then they go into Raphael's songs that he wrote for other people. He's doing like we're getting fucked up. What he wrote for Beyonce?
Fuck up the night.
I call We Getting Fucked Up Tonight.
That's not,
Isn't that
Cuff
cool?
it.
That's not cozy.
it's not Cuff It.
What
It's,
will you
Cuff it.
be?
That's Cuff
Cuff
It.
It. That's
I'm
Cuff
so
It.
proud of y'all for
Ever.
knowing these things.
Yeah.
The Beyonce things.
Well, she's too omnipresent. Like Beyonce's like a air and water. It's like hard to resist. And then they go into the solo stuff, and then they end with the hits. So, but of course, management stuff's like, can y'all just turn this into a 2-hour show because your audience is like whatever. But anyway, so much for the Tonys. Yes, but our guest today, I pray, has a lot of stories about his journey. in this music business that we love, and we're glad he's here with us today. Please welcome to Questlove Supreme, the one and only Ed Eckstine. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here, man.
The long clap. We gotta wait for 40 seconds of clapping to go by.
This is how much we
Ed
love you,
Eckstine,
Ed.
one more
Just
time,
goes
ladies
on.
and gentlemen.
One more time, people.
A guest that listens to the show too. What?
How are you today?
Yes.
You
I'm
listen
great.
to the show?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, wow.
I listen when I walk in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Explain
do.
that roll call then.
Shots fired!
Shots fired right off the gate.
Oh, damn.
Who knew the jazz guy's got a pistol?
I get the feeling you've been telling the truth about, like, we got you out of bed this morning. What is your morning routine? What do you do? I like to know what executives and creatives do for the first half hour in the morning. What's your morning routine?
I get up, I do a meditation and a prayer, and I go for a walk. I try to walk, close to 10,000 steps, but really more like 5.
Right.
Hey, listen. Yeah, it'd be
And
like-
I'm with you, Ed. I'm with you.
Yeah. And I come home, have my breakfast, chill with my wife and my son.
Okay.
Just get on the computer, do my thing.
How old is your son? How old is?
He's 22.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
And what's your method for meditation? We're into that here. What's that about?
Just close my eyes and think about what I can do to better my life and be better for the world as a collective that day. Just all. Just positivity. Try to be as positive as possible.
You said something, and now I want to get there. What? Everyone, reveal your steps right now. What's on your phone? Your steps. Do you know how to look at your steps?
I went to the gym this morning. I'm going to win.
Okay.
What is it?
You go first.
8,306.
I hate you right now. That's
Me
my.
too.
I told you.
On a good day, that's what I hope to get to. Like me getting above 5,000 is my goal. Right now, I'm 918.
That's not going to
That's
do it,
not
pal.
good.
That's not.
Is that the
I'm a
app with
lazy
the
guy.
heart on
That's
it?
like from the
That's the
door to
hallway.
here.
No,
Yeah.
sometimes in my hotel hallway, I'll walk twice.
Yeah.
Hope I get it up to 1,000. What's your step, Steve?
It says 6 In-N-Out burgers, 18 cigarettes, 5 coffees.
Jazz guy
Fun,
strikes
take a
again.
I'm at 544 steps.
Oh,
Okay.
good. I'm at 2672.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's try to get it up to 5,000 at least.
Okay.
That will help us. Okay.
Do it.
Okay. Where you did you say yours?
Oh, I said 918.
Okay, good stuff.
I slept late, and
You ain't got to make excuse. We just gonna do it. We just gonna do it.
But I'm supposed to do at least 10,000. So. All right. So you do have a morning routine. You meditate.
I do.
All right. I'm glad to know I'm not the only person that does that.
Shit, we all do.
Oftentimes I'll meet executives that are more about saving their jobs and submitting their legacy, and they don't really seem to be passionate about music or music fans. But I definitely know that you are a passionate. You love music more than anything.
I do.
So
It's in the blood.
do you find that as well, that executives are mostly there to cross T's and dot I's and really not?
Not all, but a significant portion, yeah. During my period when I was active in it, there were music guys, and then the Wall Street takeover happened, and it became sort of an element of give me 12 pounds of music to go. Nobody's really listening to it.
Kinda sounds
So
like
in
that.
my mind, in my head, I kind of hold like 1997 as kind of the Mason-Dixon line of where hip hop, suddenly realized its earning power,
Mm-hmm.
and then suddenly it became big business,
You're right. Right.
as opposed to like whatever, me living in the delusional state of, hey, people love music for music and it's an art form and that sort of stuff.
Good luck with that.
Right. Well, I know. Right. But for you, on the executive side of things, was there a glory period, and then was there the Mason-Dixon line period of like, what am I doing here?
Yes. Really, from the executive side, what got frustrating was in those days it was still terrestrial radio largely, and so we based that was the master that we had to honor. There were so many situations where there were acts that you loved. You said, I'd love to try and get after this and break it, but you knew that radio wasn't going to play it. And you had limited resources of what you could spend to make things happen, and So to a certain extent, I found myself in the position of chasing things that you thought were somewhat safer, but not that my instincts may have gone in one direction, but the realities of the marketplace, and after all, I'm running a business, is another. So,
all right, I need a 5-second moment of reflection right now, because instantly I'm regretting the decision I made. I'm literally sitting here like, wait a minute. If this person was at the top of the pyramid, how would my life have turned out? Now,
It's an
mind
interesting
you,
what if. I wonder
now
too.
mind you, I don't know if this particular tortoise in the hare journey is for everybody, and
It's not.
it was a long, hard 30 years in getting here, and I'm glad I'm here. So yes, I will say that I don't regret anything. But I will say that of anyone that I dealt with in music, like to even hear you speak on that level, in my head I'm already like, damn, where was that person when I needed them in my career? Because the reason why I'm here is because we had to fend for ourselves.
Right.
People were just like, I don't know, figure it out for yourself. So
Right.
we had to figure it out for ourselves. And yeah, I'm having a moment of, oh, damn. Wonder what would happen to had we chose. Were you the same Ed now that you were 30 years ago?
Well, some ways yes, but no.
Okay.
But as far as you guys were concerned, because I remember vividly,
I do too.
I bet you do. Kenyatta Bell was the A&R guy who was actually working for us, who first identified you guys, was excited about it. He worked for Lisa Cortez, so he and Lisa came to me and said, we're really interested in this band. They said the magic words band to me, because when I signed the Tonys, it was at a period when there was a lull in black bands, and I come up from that era. And I always viewed the Tonys as the last of the Mohicans on R&B band level, but of the hip-hop generation. I remember vividly seeing them play a performance at the Palladium one night in New York, and they were killing that night on stage. And the audience was just dumbfounded, staring into space. And I was there with the late, great Gary Harris, who was working for me at that time.
Gary Harris.
Yeah, and Gary and I...
You say, Gary, you got to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how he talks.
Yeah, exactly. And Gary and I are standing there, I'm looking at him and said, gee, what's up, man? How come nobody's reacting to him? They're killing up here. He says, you got to understand something, man. He said, most of the kids in this audience have never seen kids their own age playing a musical instrument. I was like, wow, really? And so that was the reality of it. So when I heard about you guys, a combination of, Tariq and a band, I said, this is interesting to me. And I always remember that showcase. It was a cold as hell night at SIR
Studios.
I froze myself half to death.
Yes.
I had a clause in my contract in those days, because I'm from LA, that if it got to single digits in New York, I would turn around and go home immediately. And if I was walking through Times Square with time and temperature, of the sign of the world, if I looked up and it was 352. 8 degrees, I'd walk back to my office, say, Chris, book me, I'm going home. And I think that night was one of those nights. Lisa got me to stick around to see the band.
Thank
so
you.
I did.
All right.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's
Thank you
fucking
for that.
brilliant, though.
Yeah.
Just want to
Really
put that
is.
there. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you
Brilliant writer
even know
move.
to put that in there? Like, that's so interesting. Like, did somebody else tell you once, hey, Ed, when you do
No.
a new contract?
No, because I'd spent enough time back east, because I went to high school back east, and I was working for Arista when I was at Arista, and I didn't have Clive wasn't playing that. But
So what was the road that led to, because I knew other name Ed Eckstine, of course, when you read album credits. I saw your name on like Vanessa Williams' projects and the Tonys and whatnot. But what was the road that led to your president? Like, how long did it take from the moment you entered the mailroom to presidency? How long was that?
I started at Polygram in 1987. Dick Asher was the president of Polygram in those days, and because Polygram, just for a little inside baseball, was a Dutch-owned, Philips, Dutch-owned company based in Hilversum, Holland, with a European base in London, headquarters in New York, with satellite offices in Nashville and Los Angeles. But the creative centers were largely London and New York. Right. To a lesser extent, Los Angeles. In those days, Phonogram UK would sign acts exclusively for UK, and America wouldn't have the rights to them. Dire Straits was one of those bands. Metallica was a band like that. They weren't signed to Polygram for the world. And so when a guy called Dick Asher took over, who had run CBS for a while, when Dick took over Polygram, part of the edict was to sign things for the world. So, and they wanted to up their presence as a West Coast creative center. So there was a head of A&R at Polygram at the time, a guy called Dick Wingate. Shout out to Dick.
A lot of Richards.
Yeah. And so Asher was about to. Asher apparently had a thing in his mind of who he was going to hire for this West Coast situation. But Wingate and some of the A&R guys in the New York office felt he was going old. They wanted somebody younger. And
I was going to ask you, is he well liked?
who?
Was Dick? I only know the name Dick Asher because if you're a fan of liner notes, I believe on Fear of a Black Planet, Public Enemy wrote, and fuck Dick Asher, we got Bill Stephanie watching our backs. And I was like, whoa, what does that mean?
That was extremely targeted.
Yeah, Dick was cool.
Or he was just an executive?
Yeah, Dick was cool. He was great to me.
Okay.
Once again, sidebar story that I was having a conversation with my pops at one point after Polygram had offered me the deal, made me my offer, and Dad was saying, well, tell me, baby, tell me about the deal. I ran the deal down to him, and when he sat and digested, he said, damn, sounds like you found an old-fashioned nigger lover. He said,
Billy Eckstine, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
he said, those are kind of hard to find these days.
Billy Eckstine, he is. Okay.
So
Problematic shit.
Dick was great to me. Dick was absolutely wonderful.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
And afforded me a great opportunity there.
I see.
So.
All right, so where were you born?
Born here in L.A.,
All right.
St. John's Hospital, Santa Monica.
Do you remember your very first musical memory?
I do.
What is it?
My parents were having a party. I was born in Santa Monica, but we were living in Hollywood. My parents were having a party. I was apparently like 2 or 3 years old. They were having a party in the house, and a whole bunch of Bird was there, Billie Holiday, and different people were at the crib. And this is all going on in the house. They're playing.
Breathe.
Breathe. Have like the history
Wait,
of jazz.
time out, dog.
Right.
Wait. You were in this lifetime when Charlie Bird Parker was
alive. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
and you've seen or you've been in the presence of Billie Holiday once?
Ish. Basically, but the story is...
Even if you were 2.
Yeah. My memory is, because we had a 2-story house, and the second floor, I somehow crawled out of my bed, and there was, the second story and the things that hold the... And I was looking down at the party. My parents said they looked up, and they could feel a presence. And all of a sudden they looked up, and here was my little face looking down at everybody. And I was attracted to the music and the noise and the cacophony.
And Billie Holiday.
All right, I need more stories of your life. Like,
especially childhood. That must have been.
give me a version of your childhood in which you don't know that God's in the room with you. Like, oh, my parents once told me that, whatever, went to the school with Jackie Jackson. Well, that's a bad example, but you get my point.
Yeah. Well, best way I could answer that is just my dad was an avid golfer because he was on the road all the time, and when he'd come home from the road, he played golf a lot. And one of the things that was always fun was we'd come home from school, because in our house he had like a little bar sort of speakeasy area where he used to chill after he played golf, and he never knew when we come home who was going to be in the crib with him. Who he played golf with that day. Had days where he'd come home and he was there with Smokey, or there with Marvin Gaye, or there with Sean Connery.
This is when he was on Motown, right? I know he signed to
Didn't see that
Motown.
one coming.
Perhaps.
He signed to Motown in the mid '60s. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, this is mid '60s stuff. I'm like 12, 13 years old at that point. So just little things like that. The other aspects of it. There were moments because the whole Billy Eckstine-ness of it all was he was just Pops, but the fact that people, my kids' parents reacted more to him than anything else, And one of the things that Pops always tried to do to my brothers and I, was demystify the business, but also sort of put a vibe on it to make us understand that although people kind of went buck wild when he was around, that we had to realize that he was no better or no worse than anybody else than the people across the street who had, regular, quote-unquote, regular jobs. His just happened to be in lights, and people got excited about it. So that was really, that was sort of a God moment in its own way of just, that how life was. Pops is just Pops is a
How
singer.
many brothers and sisters did you have? Or,
There's 7 of us.
Oh, wow.
Yikes!
Yeah.
Where do you fall?
I fall in the middle. It's 5 boys, 2 girls.
Okay.
I got 3 older brothers, 2 of whom are deceased now, and then me, and then my little brother and 2 younger sisters.
Did any of your other siblings, they go into music in any way?
My brother Guy is a producer and a manager, and my youngest sister, Gina, is a singer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
As a child or as a teen, would other adults annoy you if they start singing to you like Moody's Mood or anything like your dad?
Ish. Really, where they sort of get to us was, like I said, because he was on the road so much, and the only time we really talked to him was on the road was on Sunday nights. We'd hear from him. He'd say, "Dad, I hit a home run on Tuesday," blah blah blah, that kind of shit. So when he was home, they were very valuable, cherished moments. If we went out to dinner as a family, invariably there was somebody to come, Mr. B, I saw you in Moline, Illinois in 1951, blah, 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 and we're trying to talk to Pops, and, we were sort of taught / trained that, that the fans are the lifeblood of us having the ability to live the lives that we live. So just kind of smile your way through it, be polite, be nice. And Pops would handle it from there. And if they stayed a little too long, he'd say, "Hey, baby, I'm trying to have dinner with my family here,"
I get it.
And if they stayed long, he'd say, "Get the fuck out of here," So.
I was going to issue a mandate like none of you do a "There I Go" reference. So anyway,
But then
I
if
forgot, 'cause
you
that's
told
my
us
song.
not to do it, then we'd
Like,
do
that
it,
is-
or you'd want us to do it.
One of my favorite songs.
So much deductive
all
reasoning
time.
happening here.
Yo,
Anyway.
did you have peers in that way though, Ed? Since you were part of this kind of musical family, did you have other kids that kind of felt the pains that you were going through because their parents were on tour? And
Ish. But where I grew up in Encino, California. So we were the only black family there. So the Jacksons got there.
Okay.
so y'all were there first, right? Because
Yep.
it's your dad. Yeah.
Yep. And so any of the Encino at that point, it still is in the San Fernando Valley. Encino was basically a 2-lane dirt road with orange groves and a lot of almond trees and shit. And then somewhere in the late 50s became a bit of a go west young man syndrome. A lot of folks moving out to the hills there. And a significant portion, because with the expanse of the film and TV business out here, and a lot of the folks that moved to that part of the valley were business people, largely Jewish, from New York, from other parts of the country. And certain parts of the city here were redlined that, certain Jews and blacks couldn't live in certain areas. So the valley became the area of development, of principal development. And the line of demarcation in the San Fernando Valley is Ventura Boulevard. It became primarily Jewish. And a lot of the kids I grew up with were, Mo Austin's kids, Eddie Rosenblatt's kids, different, showbiz kids, making movies of themselves, as Steely Dan said.
Right.
And don't give a fuck about nobody else.
I got you.
So
So they were your peers, but they really weren't your peers.
yeah, they weren't peers in the sense their parents weren't performers, but there were some. My older brothers, like my second oldest brother went to high school with Sally Field and Cher. So yeah,
She went to school.
yeah.
No, my-
Yeah. Had a moment about this was, I'll call it 15 years ago. It was during the Kobe Shaq Laker years. It was at one of the playoff championship games. Sally Field happened to be standing in front of me at that game, and in the stands. And so I tapped her on the shoulder and said hello to her. I said, "You went to high school with my brothers," and she kind of gave me a quizzical look of like, looked at the suntan. I was like, "Wait a minute, there were none of you motherfuckers."
Right.
Oh my God, you're Ken and Ron's brother. Little brother.
Instantly knew.
Yeah.
So, well, actually, I asked the Jacksons the same question, but now that I know that you were there first, first of all, were you aware of the situation that you were placed in?
Yeah.
I asked them, what is it to be, because I always considered the Jacksons the first post-civil rights result, like all that between, Reconstruction, slavery, and civil rights, and then you get to this point post-68 where the idea of freedom or the idea of pursuit of happiness, whatever, and the Jacksons sort of took that. And I asked them, like, what was it like navigating those first 5 years in Encino, in Los Angeles? I've seen the photos. You guys have Rolls Royces and fancy cars and a roaster and all that stuff. And Marlon was like, yeah, and I routinely got stopped by cops and all that stuff. So for you, were you aware that it was like proceed with caution, or was it like?
Yeah, very aware.
Oh, okay.
Partially because how we were raised. You know, my dad was very active in the civil rights movement, and the conversation around the dinner table, or all meals actually, was either showbiz or the civil rights movement. The civil rights movement played out on TV every night on Walter Cronkite and stuff like that. And Pops was close with Dr. King, close with Malcolm. So as a result, we were very aware of who we were and what was up. You know, my parents. Pretty much, that was one of the things they hammered home to us. You know, don't for 1 minute start thinking you're white up in here. You know, this is reality of your existence. You know,
which you must have confused people a little bit visually as well.
Yeah,
at times.
well, and I realized that some of that too was because there's a certain amount of ethnic ambiguity, you know, inherent to the suntan,
Right.
and and the hair at the time, and as a result, you know. There was always a kid every year in school that wanted to step to one of my brothers and nigger, you know, he pops somebody in the face, and then you'd get sent to the principal's office, and then they say, well, we're going to call your parents. You didn't want my mom coming down. You know, mom was straight out of Georgia, Thomaston, Georgia. Okay. She wasn't having it, so she was like, you know, if they don't hit those people, if they don't punch them, you know, when they get home, it's going to be their ass. You know?
That's what my mama said.
that was our reality. But yeah, the Jacksons period was cool because that's when I first met them, and John McClain.
Okay.
During that period of time, I went to a boarding school in Western Pennsylvania.
Where?
A place called the Kiski School outside of Pittsburgh.
Near Pittsburgh. Okay.
Outside of Pittsburgh.
My mom's from Pittsburgh. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, Jake, your producer, went to one of our rival schools.
Okay. You're fired, Jake.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good.
So I was at the school in Pennsylvania, and one of my really close friends here was screwing up in school here, and he got sent to a private day school here in town, which was where Motown sent the Jacksons once they could no longer go to public school here, a place called the Walton School. So when I'd come home on vacations, our vacations were out of sync with my friends' vacations here, so ostensibly my days would end up being spent either hanging out with my mom, because Pops was on the road, hanging out with Mom, doing what Mom was going to do, or sit at home and just listen to records all day, which I did a fair share of that and play my guitar. But my buddy was like, dude, why don't you come down to my school and hang out with us? The Jacksons are here, blah, 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 blah. All the honeys are on the Jacksons hard. And I was in an all-boys school, so I mean, I'm in. So I started going.
You're just allowed to show up? And...
Yeah, just show up on the campus.
Damn.
And we did.
Okay.
And play ball. We played ball all day, and that's where I met those guys.
Okay.
And Mike was little, chasing insects and rats around.
Right. Sounds about right.
Ben.
What was your? Do you remember the first album you ever purchased?
First album I ever purchased was Meet the Beatles. First single I ever purchased was My Girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where's the family record collection?
Yeah, where is the family record collection?
I sold my vinyl about 15 years ago. I had 15,000 pieces. I sold all kinds of shit.
Okay, on behalf of Fonsigolo, City Steve, Unpaid Bill.
Yeah. Long story. But yeah, I sold it, and then Mom and Dad's collection. I still have a bunch of it, But
how many records you
they had a fair share, not a lot. Okay. But some of this got stolen. I got a great story that we had a lady who was a housekeeper for us in the late 50s when Ray Charles was blowing up with all the Atlantic records. And Mom and Pops loved those records. So they had all the Ray Charles albums, the early Ray Charles records. They came home from tour at one point, went to put their Ray Charles joints on. They weren't there. And they're like, where's the records? Mm-hmm. And this one housekeeper lady, Gussie, pinched the records. Mm-hmm. So she left, and Mom and Dad told her, said, look, all's forgiven. Just bring the records back. You got to have your job back. No. She didn't want the job back. She kept the fucking records.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
Gussie.
So, yeah.
She's probably proud of her family right now.
Yeah.
Right?
She really
God, now I got to
those
check my
records.
collection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Jesus Christ, when you sell a record collection, that means you're really, that music is in the rear view mirror. Will I ever?
I just digitized everything. But yeah, I mean, I
Right,
love
but
the
still, I need
yeah,
tangible proof
yeah, the
that
tactile thing.
I did something.
Yeah.
In the end, a man is judged by his record collection.
Yeah.
Pretty much. People come in my house, that's the first thing they do. They like, what are you listening to? That sort of thing. And, look at stuff.
Yeah, I was known for it because when I used to go to go to Kiski. School's called Kiski. When I go to Kiski, I'd come up on holidays. I'd always have 3 or 4 foot lockers filled with vinyl, filled with records. They take me, so all the kids at school knew me as a record guy.
Okay.
The first 2 records you bought, the Beatles and My Girl.
Yeah.
So, for lack of a better, more eloquent way of asking it, how did those first 2 purchases shape your taste in music and your career?
I was a Beatles on Ed Sullivan kid. When I saw Beatles on Ed Sullivan, I was like, I want to play guitar. I wanted to play drums first, but Mom's wasn't having it.
Right.
I was like, I ain't gonna have all that noise up in my house. So I said, okay, I'll play guitar, and then I got a guitar, later that year for my birthday. Don't play well, but I collect them pretty well. But my son actually is a prolific player, prodigious player, and My Girl was just because I loved the single, the lick and all that stuff.
Easy
and,
to play.
Yeah. And I always tell the story. People say, "Oh, you sing? You sing like your dad?" Say, I must have been like 11, and I was singing My Girl in the shower. My dad opened the shower door and said, "Stop singing, boy." He closed the shower door and walked away. I figured Billy Eckstine tells me not to sing. I'm not going to sing.
I was going to say that's where the Billy Eckstine he ain't joke really works. Shout out to Prince. So I would assume being a young teenager in the late 60s, early 70s, and being in the position that you're in, you've been privy to many a concert experience.
Yep.
Can you give me your top 3 concert going experiences as a kid?
Yeah. Well, kid, meaning under 21 or just whenever?
All right, well, give me your what's the first concert you went to? That's not your dad.
Yeah, it's not my dad.
But even then, I'm certain that your dad's done festivals and stuff.
Yeah,
you've seen.
exactly. Yeah.
All right, so you got to include your dad.
Let me see. I went to see Marvin Gaye at what's now used to be a club called Ciro's with my older brother. When he was in college, I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Okay. Pre-beard Marvin Gaye?
Yeah, when he was still suits, hitchhike and stubborn kind of fellow Marvin.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
early.
Was it just like meh, or did you?
I was
appreciate
into it because I loved all that shit.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved all that shit. And there used to be a theater out in the valley in Woodland Hills called the Valley Music Theater. It was one of those theaters in the round. Valley Music Theater used to do shows, and this was before the rock and roll industrial complex, as we've come to know it, came to fruition, came to life. And in those days, all this baby rock bands were out here making records, but they were having hits, but there was nowhere for them to play. They weren't touring, so they would do a lot of promotion shows for local pop stations, KRLA. And so KRLA did a show at the Valley Music Theater, like the Doors, the Byrds, the Buffalo Springfield. 3 other bands I'm not thinking of right now. I remember going out one night, on my bike, riding to the gig. My parents were working. My dad was on the road. Mom was with him. Going to that gig. And then, down the road, once I, professionally, Stones, 1973 at the Forum.
Oh shit! You saw a post-Exile show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When they did the tour with the Lotus Flower that opened,
Yeah.
they opened a Honky Tonk Woman, and Mick was hanging off the front pedal.
That's the
of
Cocksucker
Lotus.
Blues tour.
Yeah, it was great.
Was Stevie opening for them then?
Stevie was opening.
Wow.
With Ray Parker and Ollie in the band.
Yeah.
And
Denise Williams too.
yep, exactly.
She gave a lot of debaucherous stories about that tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Bootsy at the Forum, 78.
Yes.
77, 70.
Yeah.
Post
Play of the Year.
Yeah, post the P-Funk Earth tour, but it was a Bootsy Play of the Year thing.
At his height.
With Maceo doing the opening high. Oh, you Bootsy, great. Place was going nuts. The place, the whole Forum was just shaking. It was amazing.
So by the mid 70s, or even in the late 60s, are you trying to figure out what your path or what your goal in life was? Like when you were, and I'm certain everyone asks you like, and what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Like, all right, so when you were 12, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to pitch for the Dodgers. I wanted to be the Black Sandy Koufax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
So when you were in 10th grade, 15, 16, Did that change?
Yeah, ish. I still wanted to be Koufax, but I was more into music. I was also into music at that point. And in those days, the twain hadn't met yet, where basically jocks were jocks, and it was very much sort of beer frat shit,
Yes.
And whereas music was hipper, and the girls were there, and so I was like, I don't. Sports thing's cool, but no. And then when I got to college, it all sort of went up in smoke,
Okay, so by the time you
What kind of smoke?
Indo smoke.
Yes.
by the time you got to out of high school, then would you say then that's when you saw your path to?
Yeah, I knew I pretty much wanted to pursue something in the music business. Because right out of high school, I did not want to go to college immediately. I wanted to take the bridge year, as they called them in those days.
Okay.
And my parents weren't having that. My parents were like,
immediately.
Yeah,
What college was this?
Boston University.
Oh, woo, shit. Okay.
So my parents weren't having it. There was Striver thing and all that stuff. No, if you go to Europe, it means you're never coming back to college. Blah blah blah. So my interest was music. I figured, I love my parents dearly, but I wanted to get as far away from them as possible, which is L.A. I went to Boston, and Boston had a very thriving music scene in those days. As it still does, significant college population. So I just immersed myself in that.
Done many a show there.
Yeah.
It's kept
I know.
me alive.
Used to walk down the street. Aerosmith was a local band. They're playing in front of the student union. Jay Giles band. Peter Wolf was still on the radio in Boston. Giles band was playing.
So you got to witness these people when they were
Yeah.
just upstarts and
Used to see
whatever.
Aerosmith every freaking day, it seemed, playing on Commonwealth Avenue in front of the BU student union,
What?
Doing the same shtick that they did, a zillion years later. And cut to 1973, 74. I'm here back home in L.A. I'm driving down the freeway, and I'm listening to rock station KLOS, and Dream On plays. And you're dreaming on. I have that moment where it's like all of a sudden I hear it. Wait a minute, why do I know that song? I know it's from somewhere. It was so out of context. And when the guy says, "Oh, these are new bad boys from Boston, Aerosmith," I was like, "Oh shit, those motherfuckers got it."
So there have been a few guests on our show. Well, earlier you mentioned A&M exec.
Oh, John McClain.
That we always miss. So we've had guests on the show, notably Lenny Kravitz. Telling me of a period, especially like between 75 and 81, 82, in which kind of black young Hollywood, that world was so small that you had to know the Cary Gordys, the Kravitzes, the Medinas, anybody in Apollo, anybody like in John. Were you ever sort of associated or inducted in that circle? Because everyone seems to have known each other. We can never get John McClain on the show, and I'm mad as hell.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I knew people. I knew them, but I didn't hang. I was in it, but not of it. Because I had my own little sort of world at that point. And that was earlier part of 75. I was already working for Quincy by then. But, 73, 72, 73 period, that's when I first got in the game as a writer. That's when I first started doing Writing for Soul magazine at the time. And
You wrote for Soul?
That was my first gig.
Shit.
Yeah.
You know how much money I just put down for back issues of Soul? That is crazy.
Yeah, actually, the way I ended up there was because
Gesundheit. That was a strong ass sneeze, by the way.
Sorry.
No, I was complimenting the sneeze.
Oh, thank you.
I got a lot of love for Regina Jones. But there was a kid that I grew up with in my neighborhood, a guy called David Guest. David lives somewhat in infamy as the guy who married
Liza Minnelli.
Exactly.
Right. I was like, wait, I know David Guest. Okay.
And,
Somewhat in infamy.
Yeah. Sure. And
Wait, why did I do that like Family Feud?
and David and I grew up in Encino together, and he was a record troll too. I used to see David a lot in the music stores. We had different pursuits because I was a guitar player. I was into guitar rock stuff. David was into girl groups and shit. So we had this thing, amidst us that whoever got on first would pull the other along. So David was writing for Soul at that point, and
He wrote for Soul magazine?
Well,
Okay.
wait for it.
Okay.
So I used to tag along with him to shows and stuff because in those days, L.A., the sort of deal here was like Monday nights, stuff would happen at the Whiskey. Tuesday night was openings at the Troubadour. Wednesdays were the Roxy. The Roxy was open by then. Thursday night would be a Total Experience down the hood. And, Friday, Saturday nights would be concerts.
Right.
So I would tag with David.
And I'm going to ask you about all those places.
Okay.
But go ahead.
And in those days, the press was treated with a certain level of dare I say, respect, or catered to. And so I would hang with my man and get in the rooms, and obviously being this tall black dude, and in rooms there weren't a lot of us there. So as a result, one of the things that happened was I would see the shows with David, and David could hardly write his name, let alone write a story. And because I'd gone to a school that English was was put upon us,
right?
So I wrote all his stories. It wasn't like it was exactly true.
You ghost wrote his joints?
I wrote his joints.
Wow!
Yeah. So one day, David had gotten hired by London Records to work with Al Green with High. And he went into Regina and the editor at the time and said, "I'm leaving. I'm going to do this, blah, blah." "Dave, we don't want you to leave. We love your stuff so much, all that shit." On and on. And David says, "Well, you like my stuff so much. Meet the guy who's been writing it." And from stage left, here I come. And really, and they signed me something, and I wrote a couple. I wrote for him for about a year.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned those clubs, and this is what I want to know. So, my period of LA.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I came after. Mm-hmm. I came in on the tail end of whatever the former scene was,
mm-hmm.
and I came in where Sunset Boulevard
mm-hmm.
was sort of a safe.
Right.
Well, it was also the death row period, so
yeah.
let's say after '98, it was more,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you know what I'm trying to get
mm-hmm.
at. But if you are wanting to hang with where it's hip and your peoples, is the Total Experience Club the only option in town?
Mavericks Flats, another club on.
I've
Crenshaw.
heard of that.
Yeah.
Now, where is that at?
Right down the street from on Crenshaw, right down the street from where the Total Experience was.
So it was no thing to hang on Crenshaw in the 70s or in the 80s?
It was well, Mavericks and Total Experience. Oh, in the 80s, maybe the Comedy Act Theater.
Okay.
There was stuff to do there.
Comedy Act is where Robin Harris and.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I signed up.
Damn, that's right. You signed Robin Harris. I got that.
Yeah.
So that's it. Just. So for you though, were you an open format fan? As in, okay, I'm gonna see Aerosmith one night, and then the next night I'm gonna see Rufus.
Absolutely.
Next night,
absolutely, country, whatever the case may be.
I get it.
Yeah.
So, okay, so if you want to see, were you at all into the LA punk scene?
Not much.
So you didn't see bands like X or none of
I did see X. Did see Missing Persons, Chili Peppers when the Chili Peppers
early
were pups.
Okay.
Yeah. When
so we were those pre-ska fishbony
right
post-punk band.
Yeah.
Where would they play?
Madame Wong's. Madame Wong's was a Chinese restaurant on Wilshire Boulevard.
Okay.
Down in Brentwood, borderline Brentwood, Santa Monica, and then also there was Madame Wong's downtown. They would play there, or the Starwood, which was at La Cienega and Santa Monica Boulevard.
Isn't that still up? Or
Crescent Heights in Santa Monica Boulevard.
Okay.
It's not there anymore. I think it's been developed into a mini mall or something. But that was a place where Van Halen emerged from, and I remember seeing Clinton do the Uncle Jam tour there, the Uncle Jam show there, Funkadelic show. Yeah.
Okay. So what was your first industry gig? You mentioned working for Quincy. What was your first industry gig?
Well, they paid me any money or just period?
As an intern, where did you start?
Soul music thing, and then also soul magazine thing. And also I had a gig at Rodgers Cowan one summer, PR firm, big time PR firm here in town. They were looking after Stax, and the guy who was the head publicist there, a guy called Sandy Friedman. Sandy hired me to do some writing for them. I was working in the mailroom, actually. Deanie Parker, who was the head of PR for Stax, recommended me for this job. Al Bell recommended me for the job, actually, in the mailroom at Rodgers & Cowan. And I was, a token black kid that they hired because they had a black account. And so I was there and did that for a minute. And you know,
Wait, guys, we just had a guest on the show that also started out as PR, and it's
Ramon Hervey. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was trying to get mine straight.
Yeah.
Have you ran into him in circles before?
Yeah, I knew Ramon.
Is
Vanessa,
this
right?
how?
Vanessa's-
Okay, now I
Yeah.
get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the time, did you think you're going to start as a publicist, or?
I kind of was that. I mean, when Quincy initially hired me, that's pretty much what I was there to do. You know, I was there to sort of blow up. He called me a pygmy stretcher. He said, "Go stretch some fucking pygmies, Edward." And
The hell?
that's Quincy parlance.
Okay.
Yeah, so he hired me to, as he said, "I'll make the music, you make the noise." And that was kind of what I did. So I was there to basically do PR, marketing, and sort of keep an eye on his interests at the record company. And I was floating around the A&M lot, and people looking at me like, "Who is this nigga? What's he doing here? What's he do?"
And this was for Quest Records?
No, Quincy Jones Productions.
Oh, this was
So was
yeah,
this
okay,
like
gotcha.
doing the sounds and stuff like that period, or
be
Body Heat?
Body Heat. Yeah, he
Oh,
hired me.
wow. Okay.
So are you the reason why he did a really random guest on Soul Train, like with the
Yep.
Brothers Johnson?
It's
and-
my brother playing drums. Yeah, my little brother playing drums. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, guys playing drums.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Now, I feel,
Yeah.
now I want to
Wanna
stop
look
the
it up.
episode
Yeah.
to watch it. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna concentrate.
Yeah.
But I'm praying you give a long ass answer because I'm looking for this damn episode.
Commercial break.
Right. So, like, what are your relationships like? Because I know now, for instance, like, there's former interns of mine at The Tonight Show that then intern at record labels, and maybe in a year or two, they'll figure out, okay, my A&R and my publicist, whatever. There's a system to go through. Are you going through a road less traveled, like in terms of publicity? Like, how do you know who to market Quincy Jones to? Like, do you know the people at People Magazine? Do you know if Rolling Stone's into them?
Yeah. It was at that point. It was just pull out the gun and shoot where you may. You know, good luck.
Okay.
You know. So it was just to. I mean, at that point he had voluminous credits.
Okay.
And not a lot of hits. You know, and my job is to basically make those voluminous credits seem, as I used to say at the time, you'd say to people, "You know Quincy Jones? Yeah, I know the name. What can you? I have no idea. People didn't really know what to attach the name to, you know. And my job is to attach the name.
I wanted to know how potent he was pre Off the Wall in terms of like, the fear of like, because I know the idea of Quincy Jones, especially now, is definitely the post-Thriller effect. And, you know, he's told me stories that even Off the Wall was a hard sell because,
it was.
They didn't want him.
you know, this guy's old, past his prime, whatever.
Yeah. Well, actually, the line was they said at the time, he'll make Michael sound like the Brothers Johnson, and Brothers were
Which was-
double platinum at
which
that
was
point.
great.
And Mike was like, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
So,
but in terms of the potency, I mean, obviously it was a build because when he hired me, ostensibly, the short of the very long story is, I was there to do an interview with him about Body Heat. I got a call from the publicity department at A&M asking me would I be interested in talking to him about Body Heat. So I listened to the record, loved it, said I'd love to. And I had known him since I was a kid because he had conducted for my dad and he had signed my dad. He'd made some of my dad's records at Mercury when he was head of A&R at Mercury. So we went, he told me to meet him at A&M because he was still doing his big band down at Disneyland. Disneyland used to do big band shows during the summer. He said, meet me at Disneyland. Meet him at A&M. Met him at A&M. Got on the band bus. Went down there. We sat backstage and talked for all night. He never did do the interview. So he come by the crib the next day. I did, and talked more for 12 more hours. Never did do the interview. Told me to come back Sunday and do it again. We did it again on Sunday, and I never did do the interview. And I realized after it was all said and done, while I was there to interview him, he was actually interviewing me.
you, right.
And the truth was, he explained to me something I came to realize years later. Quincy sheds skin every 7 years or so. He makes changes, overall changes in whatever he's working on. And he was about to he said to me, Body Heat was indicative of many things. He was moving away from the whole big band arrangement-y thing to a more rhythm section-based electronic R&B vibe.
Modern,
and
right.
as you said to me, he said, I feel like every day I'm going to film studios doing this big band conducting thing, but I'm going home at night listening to Stevie, Rufus and Shaka, Ohio Players, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. And he said, I want to jump in those waters. And that's ostensibly what Body Heat was. And then, Body Heat was his first gold record.
It worked.
Mellow Madness was, first platinum record. First gold and platinum. And Brothers Johnson, Look Out for Number One was also platinum. The first gold and platinum albums by black artists that A&M had. And he just, slowly built it from there,
It's crazy.
So, yeah.
I found your brother, by the way.
Yep.
This is
Yep, there it is. That's
That's
Guy
it.
back there. That's my brother Guy.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Cutie pie.
it's crazy.
Steve met Guy.
So, okay, so what is how long did you stay with Quincy Jones?
I was there for 11 years, from 1973 to 1984.
Wow. Okay, who was the brain trust behind his branding? Like, I'd never seen someone have their logo on someone else's record before.
Yeah. He and I, he said he was like, I want my logo on there, and so helped him fight for it.
But that's so unprecedented, though.
Yeah,
who knew to do that? Like, is that the first? What do you call the drop that every producer has? Like,
the first, like a producer tag.
Yeah. Like, is that
Maybach music?
Right, that's the first version of a producer tag.
But but seriously, I mean, if not to that extent, but no, it really was great branding because every time you saw that logo, you knew what the record was going to sound
right.
like. Or at least for me as a kid, like reading that and seeing Quincy Jones Productions, like, okay, I know I'm getting Paulino DaCosta, Jerry Hayes. I know I'm getting
Lewis.
Rod Temperson. Right. You know what I mean? It was already just kind of a built-in selling.
The other thing we used to do, too, is when he was doing a new artist, I always say Quincy Jones Presents, the Brothers Johnson or whatever,
So this, at any point, do you sort of elevate past, like, doing this publicity to, like, actually working?
Yeah.
So, like, is this where Patty Austin's coming? Well, I know you work with Patty Austin.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, it's weird. Like, I believe she's his goddaughter, or
But I'm his godson.
right.
That's how they sold her. I feel like forever, right? Like,
Right,
that
I
maybe say
thought,
Patty
like-
Austin if you like.
right.
Yeah.
So, how are you? Like, what was your first big responsibility?
Brothers Johnson.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those 4
Yeah,
albums,
I was there for 4 records from the first album through the Stomp album, Light Up the Night.
Light Up the Night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Look Out for Number One. What was the second record called?
Right on Time?
Right on Time. Oh, God.
Blam, and then,
Worst beat of my life.
Yeah.
Well, because they jumped. Again, this is another impressible Americans in Trouble story. They were jumping on the album cover and the I guess the camera filter was over.
Yeah.
Right. And so I used to always go to my dad's bandmates and try jumping, and I jumped and dropped the dad's guitar players. And, yeah, boy. And talk about look out for number one. Number one was the belt. So,
and you live to tell.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, like, what were your duties in terms of their projects?
I was de facto manager. But
really?
Yeah.
Like project manager or like manager of the
product
acts?
manager,
Okay.
product as well as artist manager.
Gotcha.
Just sort of connected the dots on his behalf because in the early days, the first 3 records, they were Quincy had a management company called Mellow Management, and it was he and I and a guy called Peter Long, and he was married to Loretta Long, yeah, exactly. And Peter was
How long was he married to Loretta?
a long time.
He plays keyboards, right?
No. He was a stage manager at the Apollo, and he ran the Apollo kids. Luther came through there. Nile Rodgers came through there. Yeah.
So in Luther, the only authorized book. That's how I know the name.
Yeah.
Luther kind of speaks of how like wanting Peter Long's approval of like I guess Peter was sort of like the doting father that never gave.
He was very acerbic.
Right. And Luther always felt like no matter, he would sell out concerts. He was Luther Vandross. And finally, like maybe the Busy Body tour, the Night I Fell in Love tour, like Peter Long was like, all right, I'm proud of you. You did well for yourself. And like Luther like cried, like finally I made my dad proud, like that sort of thing. That's how I know Peter Long is.
Yeah, Peter was the responsible adult because during the course of the early period of my existence with Quincy, he would always bring in, because I was a kid. He hired me when I was 19. And he would always bring in a so-called responsible adult to kind of, balance me out, make sure I didn't get too buck. And Peter was that guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a manager, and I'm so glad I'm interviewing someone who was a manager in the 70s, were writers a thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So similar to now?
Ish, but now they're more pronounced. And in those days, it was primarily, the Black Promoters Consortium, so, if you tried that, I only want the red M&Ms, like, nigga, fuck you.
Yo, I found out.
That sounds like something he was.
So I later found out from David Lee Roth that they weren't separating the green M&Ms. If you don't know, Van Halen was world famous for, was basically world famous for separating the brown M&Ms from the pile, and we thought that was the most arrogant rock star debaucherous shit ever. But we later discovered that
it was not true.
Yeah. Well, we later found out that the reason why Van Halen had that in their rider was because sometimes promoters would not read the riders at all.
Yeah, to see if you're paying attention to details.
Yeah. Right. And so that was the thing. One more question about them. What happened in 1981 with the Winners record, and why didn't Quincy produce that album?
I was gone by then. I mean, I wasn't gone then. Guys wanted to. Quincy got tired of hearing, these records are great, but wait till you hear what we do when we get a chance to do it ourselves, And Quincy was like, okay, have fun with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because it's not like they stopped working with Quincy. I mean, Lewis still
exactly.
was working with them. But in their mind, they're like, did they feel as though they wanted to get a more modern sound? Or
You thought they had graduated and were ready to get out on their own,
and y'all let that happen?
Can't control the people, man. Yeah.
Is this also a classic case of like, you got to let them find out on their own?
Yeah,
and
he did.
Get in their own way.
And also Quincy at that point was doing other stuff. So,
Oh, you
Mike.
think?
Mike and his own records. And,
Right.
so.
So where did you jump to after that?
After Quincy?
In 82?
Arista. I went to Arista in 1984. No, I started in January 85. I had
So it's kind of after Too Tough.
No.
Well, I mean, I always consider Angela Bofill like my.
Yeah, I loved her. Loved her.
Loved her.
Yeah.
Can you just
Love her.
Just talk to her as a. I wish she was still here to.
Yeah.
Like, what was she like? Because anytime she was on television, she was the most. Her and Tata Vega were the most eccentric humans I've ever seen get interviewed.
Right, she was.
And what was about her? Like, was she just? Did she have like? Was humor her shield?
I don't know. I was crushed out because she was on GRP, and Grusin is one of Quincy's closest friends, and was very.
So Dave Grusin really ran GRP.
He and Larry Rosen, yeah.
And, okay.
And remember when she played here for the Angela Night record? Did a big coming out party here in LA, and I was crushed out, crushed out fanboy.
Yeah.
And when I got to Arista, Too Tough had just sort of happened, and they were doing a greatest hits record, and Clive had me looking for songs for the greatest hits record. They wanted to add two tracks.
Extra song.
Yeah,
right.
Extra song. So we did a song called Still in Love that Derek Bramble produced and wrote. And and she would call me, "Hi, Ed." She had a little cutesy voice, and she was, like I said, kind of eccentric. Yeah, she was cool.
She was very eccentric.
Under the moon and over the stars.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Listen.
So, what was working with Prime Clive Davis like?
Well, 1984, when Quincy and I stopped working together, I got a call from Neil Portnow. Portnow, who ran the Grammys. And Neil, at that point, was head of the West Coast for Arista. So he calls me, because I knew him from record business out here. He worked for 20th Century Records, worked Barry White and stuff like that. Barry White. And then James Ingram, the original James's first deal was actually at 20th Century.
What?
Yeah.
Damn.
We jacked him basically from them.
Okay.
And Neil calls me one day in the office. Hey, Ed, what's up, Neil? He says, there's a rumor that you're leaving Quincy. I said, it's not a rumor. I said, I'm leaving. He said, would you be interested in talking to Clive? Because Jerry Griffith is leaving. Jerry Griffith being the guy who had signed Whitney, who found Whitney. He said, would you be interested in talking to Clive? I said, yeah, sure, because I was well aware of the legend of and all that stuff and had never met the man. And Neil says to me, he said, Ed, there's just one thing to remember. And I said, what? He said, Arista is a label of artists, and Clive's the biggest artist on the label. Wow. And so I got you. So I got a call. I met him over at the Beverly Hills Hotel, the legendary enclave where he holds court when he's here.
Right.
And in a suite, with speakers. Basically, I thought I was in a fucking Metallica gig, cranked, and he
so you just blast music. And...
He's blasting,
Okay.
And he played me Whitney. Whitney was Work in Progress, the first record. He played You Give Good Love, played a bit of How Well I Know, and Saving All My Love for You. And, when just back to back, and couldn't really talk to him. And afterwards, I said, oh, that's Whitney Houston. He goes, really? How'd you know? I said, I know these things, and recently they had a showcase here in L.A. for writers and producers, which was kind of legendary story at the time where he was pitching for songs and stuff. And Quincy couldn't make it, and I was well aware, and, Whitney was fine.
Right.
I knew I was smart enough to know that. So
do those things generally work? Like when you gather, a bunch of
writers?
Not even name brand, but writers and producers in a room, and someone tries to sell you on their artist, like we're going to really make it work.
Yeah, sometimes.
Does that generally work?
Sometimes, and when it's Clive Davis or Quincy Jones, yeah,
Okay.
So when it's just some Pisher A&R guy, but no, not so much. But yeah, so he played me a Kashif, some of the Kashif record that was in motion.
Okay.
Kenny G record, which was basically a Kashif record with Kenny playing solos.
Was he generally, I'm under the impression that, okay, not to throw on the bus, but kind of like the way that Jimmy Iovine operated during the time when we were under the tutelage of Jimmy Iovine, it's like if you're in a world where you're dealing with Sting and No Doubt and Eminem and then it's like you might just get like a once a year below there and whatever. But in general, was Clive the type of artist that paid attention to a group like Real to Real, just like he would?
Wow. Oh, you know about Real to Real,
dude? We're a Leon.
I was with Leon last week. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's been on the show.
And I took him a copy of the Reel to Reel cassette. He'd forgotten all about it.
Dude, they just released that album. They just digitized it like maybe a month ago.
Wow.
It's finally on streaming. But I'm saying, would he pay attention to them as much as he would Air Supply or...
No.
Sorry.
Their priorities. No, hell no. They're situated... basically the rule of thumb that we had amongst the A&R staff, whether it was true or not, but we found it to be the practical reality, which was if he had stuff that he was excited about at one point and then somehow it lost its luster, it didn't perform in the marketplace or whatever, and they went back in to do their fill-in-the-blank second or third record, and the new songs that came in weren't as cool and blah, 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 but they didn't want to pay out, they throw the bone to the A&R guys. Here, fix this, And Reel to Reel was one of those situations for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I know what happened to like Average White Band and Reel to Reel and
Patrice.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But it feels so real. It's hard to tell. Like if you're a kid and you hear a song long enough,
you assume it's a hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay. So even Jeffrey Osborne explained his situation with Aerosmith, and same with Ray Parker Jr. So yeah, like who would you at Arista, what was your duties there as far as like watching acts?
I was vice president of A&R for the R&B area.
What acts came under your tutelage?
Well, obviously they were under Clive's tutelage,
right.
But Aretha, it was during the Freeway of Love period.
We tried to get Narada to come on the show today, but he's way up north, so eventually.
Yeah. It was heavily during the Narada period. I have some great fun Narada moments.
Yeah, please give me. I want to. I'm also curious about just how jazz fusion guys,
Mm-hmm.
ironically, weird enough, start establishing the pop landscape
Yeah.
of the 80s. Like,
Yeah, it was-
and Narada's one of those people. That,
Yeah, with
like,
him it was "I Should Have Loved You." You know, I remember
Yes.
that very well because
Right.
Brothers Johnson toured. The tour was Rufus and Shaka, Narada Michael Walden, Rufus and Shaka, Heat Wave, and Brothers Johnson.
Oh, man.
And
all in one bill?
yeah, in one bill, arenas, and Narada had like 15 minutes up front. You know, he basically do "I Should Have Loved You," and then some.
I don't want anybody else to dance with you.
Yeah,
It's two hits.
Yeah, okay.
And out.
Yeah.
I think that was what's his name?
Randy Jackson was
yeah,
playing
Randy
bass.
was 17.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know,
Walter Afanasieff was his keyboard player.
Yeah.
Walter,
Really?
Yeah, Walter A.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. Okay. So when you're as an A&R,
Mm-hmm.
is there, and as an A&R, and you know who your boss is,
Mm-hmm.
how heavy's the pressure to readjust your ears
Mm-hmm.
and your preferences
Mm-hmm.
to sort of blend in with his for survival's sake,
Yep.
as opposed to, I think it should go in this direction.
Yeah. It was a frustrating experience, but I learned a great deal, and I hold dear to my heart the 20 months that I worked for Clive, because he puts you up on game. You know, because when I came out of Quincy, it was kind of like I'd been at a glorified mom and pop, or I'd been at Howard, and going to Clive was like going to Harvard.
Yeah.
You know?
So
Yeah.
what would you? What's the main lessons that Quincy taught you and what's the main lessons that Clive taught you?
Quincy, I'd say song is king, song is king, and melody is queen. Truth and honesty at all times, and
Creatively or business wise?
all the above.
Okay.
Yeah. My take on Q in those days was if there were two doors in a room, one was marked artist, one was marked business. 97% of the times he would go in and out of the artist door, but the business door was well oiled. He was in and out of the, he was highly evolved as a businessman.
I get it.
He was really driven by the business, and his business drove his art in a lot of levels.
With Clive, was it the inverse? Was he more business than
Clive
art?
was song, but he was definitely business, and it was the feel for the marketplace. This sounds like a pejorative, and it's not intended to be per se, but we used to hear from time to time, just because they're artists doesn't mean they know what they're doing. It's our responsibility as A&R people and creative people at the record company, because we're spending the money to find hits, to find the hits for them.
So is there an example of a song in which the artist might be perceived as kicking and screaming? Like, is Air Supply like, we hate this even nice or better? Like,
I wasn't really fucking with Air Supply. Air Supply wasn't there when I was there.
Okay.
And Manilow had more or less left the label at that point.
Okay.
I was there during the, it was Billy Ocean, with the jive stuff, Houdini with the jive stuff.
Okay.
That's What Friends Are For, Dionne.
Okay.
Because that was a frustrating record for me.
Really?
Did they?
What
Well,
was frustrating?
tell the story.
Yeah.
Why did Glass Night only get no verse?
Album, even that was just
That
a
was a
record.
single.
So,
wasn't
single, yeah.
What's the story of that from your soup to nuts?
Yeah, my frustration was Arthur Baker and Little Steven had come to me with the Sun City record.
Right.
We wanted to do that, and I played it for Clive and played it for Roy Lott and rented up the flagpole for all the obvious reasons I really wanted it.
Right.
And I like Arthur and I like Steven. And I brought it in, and it kind of dangled and dawdled for a bit. And no, we're not going to do it. We're going to do the Dionne has just come to me with this idea from Burt Bacharach, blah, blah, blah. It was the front end of the whole AIDS epidemic thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I admit that I was a bit of a knucklehead. I was like, fuck that. Yeah, this is important in Sun City, South Africa.
Right.
Black people. And, they weren't having it. And then, so he wasn't having it. So ultimately, Arthur and Steven took it to Manhattan, to Bruce Lundvall, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Clive... they did That's What Friends Are For. And this is pre-digital, so any kind of cuts and edits were actual tape cuts and stuff. And there's a guy who was on the A&R staff with me then, still a friend, a guy called John Mervos. Mervos and I have a running bit have had a running bit ever since then, because there was an A&R meeting at one point where Clive had us in there listening to a bazillion different mixes and different cuts. Stevie first, Gladys first, Dionne first, keep smiling, keep smiling.
So you're trying to tell me that they wanted to piecemeal together, like,
yeah.
All right, so we'll bring Glass in the end and da-da-da,
Yep,
da-da-da.
they did it all. Everybody had a solo verse, everybody had an ad lib.
So everyone sang the
sang
verse,
it down.
and then you guys had to figure out the combination?
And he would offer his,
It was that deep?
Oh, yeah, he was.
And how did he figure out the sequence?
Who had the final
go
word?
First? Yeah, like, how did you?
Oh, okay, there you go.
Oh,
Never mind.
I just always felt that song. I mean, I was 5, 6 whenever it came out, but I always thought it felt like they were trying to make a "We Are the World," like they were going for that moment, like another anthem kind of. That's what it felt like.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But I always wondered why Gladys Knight never got a verse.
Yeah.
She just comes in on the ad lib at the end.
Ooh, yeah. Kills it. Yeah.
Keep smiling.
Yeah.
Keep smiling. That's the only time she appears on it.
Yeah.
Right. So good. So were you there for the recording of it, or just like?
Not in the studio, but in the office, because that was a Clive project. So he'd bring the A&R guys in, when there was a decision to be made, or listen to this, what do you think, kind of stuff, And
how long did it take to slice together and all of those things?
I don't know. I just remember the meeting being interminable, and at a certain point you're like, oh, whatever.
Smiling.
Put the shit out.
We got to get Little Steven on the show, because I just finished his reading his autobiography and him talking about leaving right on the payoff of Born in the USA to do Artists Against Apartheid. And
he's a good man. I almost hired him at one point at Mercury to do A&R. Yeah, because he's part of the Bon Jovi mob, and
he's a record guy. Man.
Yeah, so I used to see him a lot around John and Richie and those guys.
Okay.
And he talked to me when he was just forming the Disciples of Soul.
Okay.
His band, and I remember being in England with Bon Jovi, and Stephen was there and kicking it with him. I said, "What about an A&R job?" So.
Wow, I can't even see. He's a record guy, but I can't see him in a suit and tie record guy.
No, I'm not suit and tie.
To this day, how long was your run at Arista?
20 months.
Okay.
From January.
What was your
85.
last few months like?
Weird. It got weird there for a bit, because the project that I ended up working on it became pretty clear to me early on in the process that I always said that it's Clive's candy store, and if he doesn't want a certain kind of chocolate in the candy store, you're fucked. Mm-hmm. And there were things that I wanted to do that kept getting shot down.
Is this a K9 Posse story?
I had Levert early.
Wait, what?
Yeah, had Levert because Eddie and I'm having a senior
Walter.
No, not Walter. What's my man's name?
Gerald.
No.
Eddie Levert and his.
No, Eddie, and then fuck. Yeah, he was an executive at Philly International.
Okay.
No, yeah, he was promotion guy. You know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably
Harry Coombs.
Harry Coombs.
Yeah. Eddie and Harry Coombs called me one day and said, "Hey man, what you doing?" I said, he said, "Me and Eddie are going to come out here. You want you to hear Eddie's Kid?" He played me. They had an independent record of the song "I'm Still."
Yes.
And it heard it and said, "Smash,"
Yeah.
And the kid sounds like his dad, and it was all good. And played it for the boss, and he was like, so pass. And so
without really, in the most respectful way, or if you just want to be honest, does black music have to be explained to him? Like, did he know the magic that he had in Houdini, or is this like, oh, these rap guys went gold too?
That was really Clive Calder and Barry Weiss and Ann Carly. Ann Carly, you should have on the show sometime.
Oh yes, okay.
Tokioski, yeah, he had a pretty good feel. He had a feel for songs and trends,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
All right.
It's like Friends time y'all talking about?
Well, no. Well, I mean, just in general, I want to know, because the thing is that in my mind, okay, so I'm revisiting, and there's a reason why I have all the Soul Train stuff. So now I'm kind of in the Soul Train Awards thing, and I'm watching season 2 of the Soul Train Awards, and you can clearly hear the boos and the jeers of the second album. In the building.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay, so in the building, even though, and it's so weird because everyone's relationship with I Want to Dance with Somebody now, like I put I Want to Dance with Somebody in what I call the September file.
100%.
I don't believe that Earth, Wind & Fire really thought like September was going to be their signature song. Just like I don't think Run DMC thought that It's Tricky is going to be their signature song. Now it's like when I play I Want to Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me, it's almost like I see the revisionist reaction of everyone like, we've always loved the song.
But I did as a little girl when it came out.
That's because when you were young and no. And it's technically
in the
nothing.
video made it like.
It's nothing wrong with it, but there's a reason. For me, okay, so George Clinton once told this joke, said that Sly Stone said this about Prince. And Sly was like, man, he walking around here. Like, they went to some Sign of the Times show, and George was like, what'd you think? Like, that was the first time that Sly really got to see Prince. And Sly allegedly said, man, he up there tasting like broccoli when he should be tasting like mustard greens.
I got that.
And so
Okay.
I think in my mind,
I mean, I hate this
the thing was I tried to figure out, okay, so the version that I would have wanted Whitney Houston to come out with, then it would just probably have been like a Kashif record. More Thinking About Yous, more You Give Good Loves, which were still our jams.
Records,
But I don't know.
For a reason.
Oftentimes, I don't want to be the fan that punishes someone for having to adjust to the climate.
Right.
And it's almost like I don't know what the answer is, but I do remember when I got that record, you know, Love's a Contact Sport, and I was just like, wow, this is really poppy. And I wasn't thinking like an A&R at the age of 15, but even I knew like...
Yeah. From inception, the motive always was, I remember just being there, she's a pop star. Whitney's going to be the biggest pop star in the world. And that was the goal. And the Kashif tracks were there to basically introduce her to put toe in the water at black radio, get black folks, you know, to know who it is.
Cosign.
But then we're crossing it from there, you know.
Did anyone ever ask, but at what cost? That's not Whitney Houston, because I'm almost certain that she, too, was like, hello.
I don't know.
Okay. So, but what was do you know what the general feeling in the building was after the Soul Train Award situation? Because I'm really shocked they didn't edit. So they later edited those boos out, but I recorded it like...
Say the full sentence, Amir, for the young folks that don't know.
Okay, so at the Soul Train Awards, and it really wasn't Whitney's fault, but she was just like too ubiquitous, winning too much.
Yeah.
And so when they were nominated, and the nominees for Best So Emotional, Whitney Houston, you just clearly hear, boo! Yeah. It's just crazy, crazy boos.
Right.
And me and my mom looking at each other watching the Soul Train Awards like, yo, like, wow.
Yeah.
And so...
And who do we want to win? I'm like, now in retrospect, too, I'm like, who do we think got duped?
Yeah.
I was frustrated. I don't know why I was frustrated. I was frustrated at her career. I'm proud of this success, but there was just too much sheen on it for me. Too much Yamaha DX7. Too much, you know, the Michael Master intros and everything.
No, totally.
But it's weird because now it's like, oh, I love this all along, which is, you know. But what were your general feelings? Like, what was the feelings of the building after the Soul Train Awards?
In the building where the Soul Train Awards were, or the building like at Arista, 6 West 57th Street?
At Arista, you talking
Well,
about?
at Arista, yeah.
Just disappointment. You know, what the fuck was that, you know, kind of thing, you know?
But was it an instant, like, we got to fix this? Or was Clive aware, like, we might have to fix this?
Let's just keep it moving. That was the vibe I got. Keep it moving, you know? Keep putting it on the radio and blow it up, you know? They'll get over it.
At that point, are you the only black A&R in the building? Is there any other black people that are pushing black music?
And I was the only black A&R guy, yeah. But, you know, there was a head of R&B promotion, a guy called Toni Anderson.
Okay.
There was R&B, Tracy Jordan in publicity. You know Tracy. Okay. And we should have her also.
Yeah. So you left. What happened after Arista?
Went to Polygram. There was a new music seminar was going on in New York. This July of '86, and I'd run into this guy called Bob Scoro. Scoro ended up being my head of A&R for Mercury on the pop side. And Bob and I had known each other from out here because he used to be a song plugger for EMI Music. And I saw him one day. He was like, "Dude, how are you, man?" You know, one of those things. "What's happening?" I said, "Dude, get me out of here." He said, "What?" He said, "Just get me out of here." I said, "You know, it wasn't working out for me. It was a weird environment." I said, "I don't want to be here anymore." And I had aspirations of doing something, you know. Arista was not a great place to be at that time if you were a creative person who had illusions of your own personal grandeur, you know.
Who did you try to bring there that, besides Levert,
Levert.
Who got away?
Basically, Levert. And it's mostly songs because you find songs and stuff, you know, that
What song did you ride for that?
Caravan of Love for Angie.
Really?
Yeah. My
Wow, Caravan of Love done through Angela Bofill.
Caravan of Love, Ozzy Just Ozzy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My ex-girlfriend from years before, her sister was married to Ernie.
Okay.
And that's, as I got a call at one point, you know, Ernie and Chris have songs they want you to hear. So yeah, I'm looking for songs for Angie Bofill. Oh, we got a perfect song for you. They came up and played me Caravan of Love. And
Clive didn't see it.
No. So it's too preachy. So yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so
okay.
yeah. Anyway.
I assume that he's trying to hit Middle America.
Yeah, ish.
Okay. And you're trying to hit all of America.
Exactly.
Okay. I see.
So that got frustrating.
Okay.
And the projects that I actually ended up working with, Kenny G got dropped in my lap, you know, because I did the
Duotones?
Duotones. Thank you.
Okay.
Senior moment.
Can you plan that moment? Like, can you plan that level of lightning in a bottle?
Here's the moment. I'd known Kenny as Kenny Gorlick when he was playing with Jeff Lorber's band.
Yes.
Because you know, I was a Lorber fan. And so when I got in, and once again, I spent some time with Kashif, and out here in L.A., Hi, How You Doing was actually a hit record on the radio, which was a Kenny record, but it was a Kashif record with Kenny solo in it.
Right.
And so one day I get a call. Clive actually, you know, Roy Lott, who's the number 2 guy at Arista, then Roy says, you know, Kenny G, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, cool, let me hear it. I said, I know who he is, let me hear it. And then Kenny calls, Kenny's manager, a guy called Dennis Turner, who had managed George Benson. I knew him from the Gimme the Night days. So they came by, and Kenny walks in, and he says, dude, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to get off the label. I hate it here. I fucking hate it here. I'm tired of being a sideman on my own records. And I looked at him, I said, dude, I know who you are. I said, I saw you play with Jeff many times. I said, I like your playing. He looked at me like, What? I said, yeah, man, I dig how you sounded good with Lorber's band. I said, I know what you're trying to do. I said, but the reality is people are trying to put you in a box that you need to be Sonny Rollins or John Coltrane, when the reality of it is I know your path in is like David Sanborn and Grover.
Right.
You know, and Junior Walker. So that was like music to him. And it was at the time was at the front end of the CD thing, but also was at the front end of the whole smooth jazz, the wave format, you know. And I said, I think you could live in that zone. And then he gave me a cassette of home stuff that he was working on, which was ultimately the bones of the meat and bones of what was a duotone.
Duotones, right.
And I told him, I say, man, look, here's what we need to do. If you trust me, here's what we need to do to make this fly here. So we got to do 2 covers. We got to do two vocal songs. One of them's got to be a cover, and that was "What Does It Take to Win Your Love?"
Right.
And then another vocal song, which was "Don't Make Me Wait for Love."
Okay.
We got a guy called Ellis Hall, who's a keyboard player up in the Bay Area that did a lot of stuff for Narada. Got Ellis to sing it, and ultimately he ended up putting Bolton on it. I said, and if we do that, we have something that promotion can take to radio. We're off to the races, and the rest will live on its own. You'll be the king of whatever smooth jazz, and we did.
So nowhere, you can't end it. We did. I mean,
we did.
You weren't
Done and done.
Surely you weren't thinking like, and this is going to sell you 10 million copies.
No, I didn't think that because I didn't think the Songbird would end up emerging.
How did
as it did.
Songbird even? I was working at Sam Goody's at the time, and even like the amount of people. That's how I knew. I realized that I knew some songs from a previous record,
right?
But the amount of people just kept in Songbird.
Right.
That's how I know what a duotones is. How did Songbird?
I was gone by then, but basically what happened, the story that I'm told is Donnie Einer, who was the head of promotion at Arista in those days, best promotion man of his period,
Okay.
of his era. Donnie had gotten a call from some guy up in, like, I want to say, what's the part of Pennsylvania that Biden always talks about where he's from? Scranton.
Yeah.
Some PD in Scranton had been using it as a theme for some like daytime call-in show or something.
Right.
Just the melody, and I guess people started calling the station. What is that? What's that melody playing? And so they put the record on late at night, and then the phone started lighting up, and they called Donnie and said, "I think you may have something here." And Donnie and Clive pushed the button, put it out, and off it went.
Ah, Jesus. Yeah. Okay. So at Polygram, how long does it take you to get to the top of the mountain? And did you want to go to the top of the mountain?
What happened was, I was working at Arista, and Ramon came by to see me one day, just on some whatever, and Vanessa at that point had done just Do Fries Go at That Shake and Hey Good Looking on the P-Funk record, on the George Clinton record, and I knew that they'd been in and out of many offices here shopping a deal. And ostensibly what was happening was that she was kind of being ogled at by, record company presidents and A&R people, whatever, but nobody was really taking it seriously. And he said, we haven't been able to get anything happening, blah, 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 blah. And I told him, look, on the lowest, and I'm leaving here in about 6 weeks. I got this offer from Polygram to start a label for them, and I'm going back home to California. I said I would entertain the notion then, because my theory at the time was I could start a new label with Susie Jones, an R&B female that nobody's ever heard of, or I could do it with Vanessa Williams, a name that everybody knew. And I said it was incumbent on me as an A&R guy and a record maker to make the right music, to find the right hole to put her in. And so he said, okay, cool. So I came home, and she and I sat and had dinner one night, and off to the races we went.
Is the goal of an A&R to find like 3 signature artists so that you can eventually like get considered for?
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, the presidency thing was not what I ever aspired to be. President of the whole Mercury thing. I never aspired to be that guy, but there was a certain aspect of when it was offered to me, I thought about a lot of those old school dudes that I knew from my dad's era, old brothers who had promotion men, whatever, the Dave Clarks, Joe Medlins of the world, people like that. People who probably worked your old man's records. So those guys were very qualified and extremely good at what they did, but they never were offered the situation, never got a shot. I thought about it, I said, who am I to say no? So I took, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I didn't refuse it. But the truth of the matter is, the path, if I had stayed on the path that I was on, doing the wing thing, Vanessa blew, Tony's blew,
Toni, yeah.
Robin Harris was gonna blow. Unfortunately, we lost him in that period of time. And then that's when I found Brian along the same period of time, Brian McKnight. So if I had just done those records and just stayed in their careers, that was, those one success breeds another, album breeds another. I would have been 4 or 5 albums deep on each one of them,
How did you came through the Tonys because of Foster McElroy, but I thought they were more Warner based in like. How did they come to you?
I put them with Denny and Tommy.
Oh, word?
Yeah.
Okay.
How they came to me was the Tonys had made a single, a 12-inch on Macola Records, the local indie label
They
here.
made a Look at House Jam.
Yeah.
Wow.
You must have told us this.
Raphael didn't tell us that shit.
Yeah,
He told us designs video games, but he didn't say that shit.
Yeah. I forget the name because I was thinking about it. I can't find it now. I shouldn't have sold my vinyl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Life lessons.
So they had a 12-inch on Macola, and my head of promotion at Wing at the time was a guy called Michael Johnson. And Michael came to me one day and said, "Man, you got to hear this record." And I said, "Yeah, it's cool. It's all right." He said, "Man, they're here in town. You want to fuck with them?" And so I said, "Yeah." Their manager came by, and I sat with them a little bit. And upon hearing it, I went, "These guys sound good, but they need help. They need somebody to help sort it out a little bit." In those days, my theory was every producer worth any degree of salt had a cassette in his back pocket of an act that they wanted to work with. Oh, this is my cousin, this is my brother, that kind of. And I said, these guys are cool. So David Lombard, who manages Denny and Tommy, was a friend, and I went to see Club Nouveau because Club Nouveau was playing here in town when Denny and Tommy were still in the band before they left. It was actually the last gig they played with them. So I went to the show with David, and he introduced me to Denny and Tommy. And I told him, I said, man, I'd like to have you guys work on this band that I'm thinking about signing. Really, who? And I told him, oh, we know those guys. They knew them from Oakland, because I guess they'd worked with Tommy in the studio up in Oakland. So
at the time, did you realize that you were working with possibly the last, well, not the last R&B group, but I mean, if it starts with Sly and the Family Stone in '68, then it kind of the bracket ends with Toni in '88. Like,
I was very aware of it. Absolutely.
So you knew that black music was in trouble even in '86, '87, '88?
I did.
What were some of the indicators for you?
Black radio. There was that MTV video of Video Killed the Radio Star.
Right.
I said black radio killed the black radio star. During a period of time.
Talk about that.
Is it just in terms of promoting? So you talk about Donnie Iron, which I didn't know it even started at.
He didn't start there, but that was his big gig before he went to Sony.
Before he went to Sony.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about promotion men, can you tell about the difference between, as much as you're allowed to say, like how these songs get on radio or how they get promoted, as opposed to now, which and
explain what you mean about how it killed, because we didn't really explain that part.
I'll answer your question first.
Okay.
They usually do.
But you got the flowers.
Thank you.
To give a perfect example as it worked with me was when we released the first Brothers Johnson album in 1976, Look Out for Number One, the first city that it blew up in was D.C. So we, me and George and Lewis were going to D.C. to do some promotion. And we're coming in from Dulles in the car, and we're hearing and turn on HUR and KYS, whatever the other stations in DC, and they're blasting good to you. Get the funk out of my face. Thunder, Thumbs, and Lightnings, like Free and Single, and Tomorrow. Playing five,
even the filler.
Yep, 5 cuts deep. Playing the shit out of it. This is exactly playing the shit out of it. I was like, oh my God, this is great. It's on like that. So that night, we were the local guy in the market took us to dinner with the program director, music director of WOL, the big pop station.
Radio One.
That was Petey Green. WOL.
That WOL WMMJ is Kathy Hughes.
Dewey Hughes.
But Kathy's first station.
So they took us to dinner with these guys. It was program director at the time was a guy called Bobby Bennett, who was known as the Burner, sort of legendary radio guy. Another guy called Chuck McCool, a guy called Cortez Thompson, who went on to become a head of promotion at Warner Brothers, and another guy whose name escapes me. So, we're at the dinner table, and I'm green behind the ears. I'm geeked. Oh, this is worth the palm. This is great. This is great. Oh, you guys are playing a record. We're in the car. Well, we heard our record the whole way in. And one of them looks at me, come here, young brother. Let me talk to you a minute. He took me into the bathroom, and said, and then 5 guys come in the bathroom. I was like, what the fuck? They said, let me explain something to you. And I said, okay. I said, basically, we're playing the shit out of your record, but we can play the shit out of his record or her record or his record too. But here's your payback for this. We're also concert promoters. We're gonna do a series of shows in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia.
That's a conflict.
It was P-Funk, Natalie Cole, and Bootsy and the Brothers Johnson. And whatever your going rate is, it's not going to be your going rate. So, and you keep those spins up, and they did, and we did, and the record.
This is how the Shep Gordon Teddy Pendergrass story comes into play, because Shep Gordon told us that programmers and DJs were like, any concerts that you saw in the 70s and 80s were due to the radio station, not independent of. Hey, I'm coming to town, and you pay me.
Right.
So they
beginning of the promo show, I guess, era.
Yeah, it was
beginning of the promo shows, because that was all the way into
it got
the
legitimized with the promo show.
Yeah.
You're going to play our Christmas show, years later.
I see.
So how did they kill it? How did black radio kill it for you?
I think just there's so much. I don't want to say payola, but just. There were limited spots. Guys were taking money, and then they wouldn't play you didn't get the spins that that you expected to get. So many hours in a day, and then but legitimate hits got played, but stuff that that you want to get a shot. I think we could do well with this. Here's X amount. I need whatever 50 spins this week. Whatever. didn't happen. You know, guys took your money and ran. You know.
So
And then all of a sudden, you know, there was no loyalty anymore to legacy acts. You know, when you see like that, I'm talking early mid to late '90s now. When you see that Luther, Stevie, Anita Baker, people like that are having to fight to get on the radio at black radio, that's really a sad state of affairs.
it is. I think about it all the time. But for you, it's like when do you consider you leaving, or do you consider yourself completely graduated from quote unquote the business?
Yeah, I am. I'm more or less retired. I still do little bits and pieces of stuff here and there, you know, because I get these occasional phone calls. Hey, Ed, I got an idea. And I always say, does a check come with that idea? Then I'll pay attention, you know. So,
But is watching the state of music right now, is it a dizzying experience?
yeah, somewhat.
Is it like a Beautiful Mind meme where you just see, like,
Yeah.
is it like that for you?
Yeah, somewhat. It was interesting. In preparation for today, I was thinking about, you know, I said, well, if I get asked the question, you know, what are you listening to?
I hate answering that question.
Yeah. Then I realized that, you know, of most of the new stuff that I listen to is old stuff that's either been recently released or it's new on my radar, you know. But you know, it's just not a lot of new stuff that, you know. I don't mean to sound like an old man, but there's not a lot of new stuff that rocks my world, you know.
No, we're a band of folk who is somewhat frustrated.
It's just harder to find it these days. There's way too many options. Because at the same time we say that, but then I'll hear y'all two talking about like new R&B acts and stuff like that I never heard of, and I'm just like, fuck, how do I even find these people?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think now you have to have the patience to, you know, either scroll on the internet, or in my case, I have at least 20 music snobs that I just peek on their Spotify and see what they're listening to, and then I'll take that and take that. I mean, that's how I knew who Salt was. You know what I mean? So
I like Salt.
yeah,
it's cool.
like there's a few left.
Ed, I want to ask, what year? So you're president of Mercury from what years? When did you?
I was co-president initially. I was at Polygram doing the wing from 1986 to 1988, and then I became co-president of Mercury from 1988 till 1990 with a guy called Mike Bone, and then I became the sole president from 1990 till I left in 1998.
Oh wow, okay, so it was a run. So in terms of, I want to know with hip hop, because Mercury was always, looking back on it now, like Mercury was always a label with hip hop. I mean, y'all had Black Sheep, you know what I'm saying? You had like Ill Al Scratch, you know what I'm saying? Like y'all had records.
Ed OG,
100%, you know what I mean? And so for me, it seems like Mercury was one of the first labels that in retrospect now, y'all had like records and artists, but it was kind of like, unless that artist was attached to like Black Sheep, they were attached to native tongues, you know what I'm saying? But if you had artists that had great records, if they weren't attached to another production company, like, you know what I'm saying, or like you know what became Rockefeller and Murder Inc. and all those things, it was kind of the beginning for me of losing faith in major labels doing hip hop. Like if I just saw Columbia, I'm like, but if I see, you know, Rockefeller / I'm like, oh, okay, you know what I mean?
it's like a good housekeeping stamp of approval.
Or the Quincy Jones Productions.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel me? You know what I mean?
I do.
So how did you, as a label head, how did pushing hip hop, coming from like the pop background and working with Clive and stuff, how did you adapt to marketing hip hop?
You just get in where you can fit in, you know. And if it was this case of finding stuff that was attached to somebody else or something else, that's how you did it, you know. Because you knew there was an uphill climb if you're starting it from scratch. Because at radio, once again, the first question you're going to ask is, who are they down with? You know, who are they associated? You know, so it was that, you know.
But similarly, there's like a new phase of white rock music in the same time period, right? It's Bon Jovi, Def Leppard, Mellencamp, Tears for Fears, Kiss. Like, what made the diversity of what you were doing? I think you started with R&B, now it's rock music. Like, how'd you feel about being that guy to usher that kind of stuff in?
Yeah, all those artists were already at the label when I got there. You know, I inherited them, and it was interesting.
Did you have good relationships with most of them? Or did you feel that there was resistance from the rock people that maybe you don't understand them? I know there was a situation with Sylvia Rhone at Elektra with like Metallica, and there was a lot of disrespect on their end because they're like,
Who
"Was this black
girl?
woman know about that?"
Yeah.
Like,
I had my version of that. I was one point was sort of asked the question, "What does he know about rock and roll?" And I would always say, "A whole lot more than you know about R&B."
Right.
You know,
Just that my people created it.
Right.
But
There's a line here that says John Mellencamp being difficult. I'm sure there's a story there. That's all it says.
Say less.
to his credit,
Enough said.
John's also an eccentric. I think all artists are eccentric.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I liked him, but he was like he definitely. What's the Q-tip line? Record
Shady?
Yeah, exactly.
People shady.
Yeah. John definitely read that book, and then had suspicion of everybody. Everybody at the record company's an idiot, you know.
Yeah.
Were you the brainchild behind the Meshell Ndegeocello duet?
Ish. Tim.
That's gonna be our new word.
Yeah, I know. He's used that a lot, and it
Wild
seems right
nights
on.
are calling.
Timothy White, who used to be the editor of Billboard.
Right.
Tim and I were pretty friendly, and he was one of John's closest friends. And I knew that if I pitched John directly, here's an idea I have for a duet, but he was like, fuck you. So Tim calls me at one point and says, we're having a conversation. He goes, I'm trying to help John make some sense of this next record, blah, blah, blah. He said, what do you think? I said, well, a cover might be a cool idea. A cover and a duet. He goes, yeah, that's a good idea. So I said, Meshell Ndegeocello. She was the it girl of the moment. I said, John will, it'll satisfy his Negro gene. And so...
Hey, this is a
love
guy
your
that
truth.
once played Little Rick Rivette out of a Walkman, like to his audience, like back in '82.
So Tim basically went to John. So here's an idea, blah, blah, and John loved Van Morrison. So it's cool. And then they did it.
Ish.
I was at a Meshell show at the Blue Note, and some poor soul on the back was like,
Shouted it out?
No
and I was
way.
like, come on, stop.
What was the response?
She laughed.
Okay, good.
I would ask, how involved were you in the creation of Vanessa's The Comfort Zone album?
100%.
Okay,
100%.
there was a
Soup to
producer
nuts.
you worked with on there, Keith Thomas.
Yeah, Keith.
Who, yeah, man. Like, how did that? Because my favorite song on that album, again, "Goodbye." That was my
Goodbye's great. I love
That's
that
the
song.
one.
I love
Like
that song. Yeah.
Brian McKnight comes in at the end.
Yeah.
Like, I love that.
Yeah,
song.
Deep Cup Smurf.
Yeah,
No,
nah,
Comfort Zone is the shit.
That's that was the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keith Thomas, because I really like the BB and CC record, I'm Lost Without You.
Yeah.
And Keith had produced that record, wrote and produced that record. And Keith was kind of Christian David Foster,
Right.
That was the vibe, And when the publishing person played me Save the Best for Last, and I said, yeah, and I played it for V, and she dug it. I said, who's the right person to produce that? Foster would be great to do it, but I know he won't. But I said, let's get Keith Thomas. So I called Keith. Scott Folks, who was A&R guy at Capitol in those days. I called,
Foster would front on you.
everybody fronted on
Well,
Vanessa.
Dreamin' was a proven hit by then.
Folks fronted. Yeah.
She had to do it again to prove it.
Yeah, exactly.
God
So-
damn.
and got Keith.
The disrespect.
Called Keith and he said, yeah, I'm down. And the funny part about it is Keith's production assistant had sent me a cassette of just ideas that he had, and then left out two songs that Keith thought had come to me. He thought I passed on. One of them was Baby Baby, the Amy Grant record.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and the other was, I'm sorry, Baby Baby, the Amy Grant record, and the other was the song that was this big Selena hit. So that's the Keith Thomas story. Keith was a good dude.
And how was it? Because another one of your hip hop artists I really like, Diamond D. He had.
Yep.
Were you involved?
That we had a deal with, I can't remember the name of the label
Chemistry
right
or
now. Chemistry
PW
Records,
okay,
yeah.
Chemistry.
Chemistry Records, a guy called Brian Chin. Brian was the dance
Chin.
music editor at Billboard for a long time. And Brian had a partner whose name escapes me right now, but they had chemistry. Ed O.G. was theirs. A few things. Diamond D. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
So what do you feel from afar?
From seat 302 of the bleachers.
Yes, exactly. What do you feel? Well, I don't want to ask like, what do you feel the future of music is? Do you have hope that sort of the thing that, and again, I know this is such a subjective question because I'm certain that there's some 14-year-old that's in their feelings at a Billie Eilish show that, you know, probably the same way your dad's looking at Sly and the Family Stone, like, what the hell is this? Like, I knew Billie Holiday. Yeah. But in your mind, do you think that there will be an itch that gets scratched as far as your relationship to music and what brought you to it?
I don't know.
Or is it just in your kids' hands now?
It's my kids' hands now. Because there's a certain aspect of it that I wonder that, you know, it's the old, if the tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it, you know? I wonder at times that if whatever that next big flashpoint is, if it happens, how much will anybody really give a fuck? And the give a fuck factor is decidedly different now in terms of what that impact is, you know? It's because there's so many options, you know? I got a couple things. Can I do this now?
Yes. Oh, he's presenting me with records.
What you got?
Whoa. Okay. Can you explain what this is?
Yeah, it's Beat to Shit. It's a 78 of Leander's in the Hearts.
Wow.
On chess with the original chess logo.
Wow. On chess?
On chess, yeah.
Records?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't cry.
Frame
Don't
it
cry.
up.
Whatever you need to do. Whatever you need to do.
Get you going to
Whatever
frame
you need
that
to
up,
do.
cuz.
Whatever you need to do. That's all.
Yeah. Have your moment.
That was an artifact that came from my mom and dad. You know, Pops didn't give a fuck about doo-wop, you know, but apparently he liked your dad's group, man, because he had that record.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's a 78. Do you have something to play a 78 on? Like, do you
Yeah,
have a turntable
I
play
could,
78?
but I have to frame this.
That's a frame.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
figured
frame,
that's
bro.
what you do with
Yeah,
it.
don't play that.
I already.
I feel like it'll just like evaporate
Man,
into dust.
I'm beyond grateful for this, man. This is. Wow. I've never seen.
Not a speechless guy, Ed. You made him a speechless guy. Well done, man. That's real.
Nah, man.
That's
a
real.
10-inch. And oh man, even Roy Calhoun's "The Girl Around the Corner's on the Beast."
What a nice gift. And for the rest of us, Ed, what else?
When I get the stems to the first Diamond D album.
Esquire.
Yeah.
Well, Teardrops came out in 58.
Wow, bro, you gotta show the camera there. They got that's.
Oh,
that's
yeah. This came out in 58. So.
Wow. And that's an original press, and that's like.
Yeah.
Yes.
78. As you can say, somebody played the shit out of it.
Yeah.
You're going to have to fight Don.
Yeah.
You're going to have to fight
Somebody
Don
wrote
over
their
that
name
joint.
on it.
Albert. Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I brought a couple other.
Man, so why we? Did you sign Joe?
Huh?
Did you sign Joe?
So, yeah,
Yes,
Dave,
I need one.
he signed
I
us.
need a dongle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
everything. I had
Yeah,
the first
a
album.
guy called Dave McPherson signed him to the label. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, we didn't discuss the Jason's Lyric soundtrack. Perhaps one of my favorite soundtracks of all time.
Right.
Wow.
It is.
Yes,
Little-
that's why for whatever reason.
What's
that
your song?
resonated with me. You will know.
Yeah, you will know. Yeah.
Oh, we got a dongle. We
You
got a dongle.
will.
I love that song.
Yeah,
I fucking
you
love
know.
her, but that was so.
Whoa, this is your. This is your.
Black Men United, wasn't that
No,
right?
I know.
Yep.
It's Black Man United. I love that song.
We can talk about that. 'Cause
Actually, wait a minute. Did you take a stab at D'Angelo before he signed it? EMI?
yeah, Gary
Because
brought.
of Gary.
Yeah, Gary. Yeah, Gary, and then Jocelyn. Jocelyn was working for me in those days too.
Were you in the? Wait, Jocelyn was shopping at the time, or?
No, Jocelyn had a publishing company with me. We made a deal called For Midnight Music, and when Gary took it to EMI, Jocelyn signed the publishing deal.
Okay.
Had him, and Gary, they weren't going to use "You Will Know" for his album. And George Jackson and Doug McHenry were doing Jason's Lyric, and brought me in. I was music supervising it with him, and I'd heard "You Will Know" from Gary, and I said this would be perfect for the soundtrack, given the theme of the film and all that stuff, and having come from the sort of the Q world. I came up with the idea of let's do it as a We Are the Worldish kind of thing, and called it Black BMU because that's what they're calling prisons at that point. Black Man University was because there were so many brothers in jail.
Damn.
And the prisons would be called BMU.
Wow.
And I said let's call it BMU, and they went, I said Black Men United. And said, oh shit! And then we did.
So then, but you also did the same for women for
Yeah.
the.
Panthers
Freedom?
Panther
the Panther
soundtrack. Yeah,
soundtrack.
exactly. And I'll digitize these.
Thank you.
I thought you'd be curious about
Oh, here you got more. Oh shit.
Edmonds Brothers, 1985. 83.
Like Havon?
Kenny, Kevon, and whoever the third one was in After 7. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Before they were.
And the chocolate one.
After 7. Yep.
Before, okay.
And then Bootsy, Cincinnati demo when I was at Arista. I was going to wanted to sign Bootsy then, and Clive was like, "No, we need to get them with a producer." Blah 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 blah. Right. And so I knew these guys, Kenny and Antonio from Cincinnati at that time. That's where Face got the nickname Babyface, because Bootsy named him on these sessions I paid for. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He said, "Motherfucker, you look like Babyface." Called him Babyface.
All these fucking stories, Ed.
Talk your shit, Ed.
Let them know. Let them know.
You know, and this legendary tale about me and L.A. having beef over Girlfriend, which was,
That's right.
sort of true.
Can you please tell us the girlfriend story?
So, 1987, 86, 87, I'm working with Vanessa on her first record. So we're trying to make some sense of who would produce, who would work with on that record. And I knew these two guys from Cincinnati at the time, called Kenny Edmonds and Antonio Reed. I had met them because when I was working for Quincy, there was a local street producer, entrepreneur, a guy called Pablo Davis in the Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio area. And Pablo turned me on to the Calloway brothers. And also he was looking after Kenny and Antonio. They were just becoming LA and Babyface. They hadn't gotten on yet. They came by my office, had Vanessa go by their place, and she worked with them on some songs, and they gave her a song called Girlfriend, which was great. I forget who was singing the lead on the demo, and I heard it, so the smash. I got to have this record. And I thought we'd made a deal. We played Let's Make a Deal. And so what happened? Let me think. V she was pregnant with her first child at that point. And I guess the truth of the matter is, cut to the end, Pebbles was the perfect person for it because she had the attitude. She was that persona. Vanessa's not that persona. Yeah. But it was...
she tried with the...
Yeah,
the right stuff was a little bomb squatted out, and the second single from the Comfort Zone album,
Running Back to You.
Running Back to You.
Right.
Yeah.
So she had a little attitude.
So anyway, so like I said, I thought I had made a deal for these. There were like 4 songs on the tape that we wanted them all, and Girlfriend was one of them. And at the last minute, right when I thought it was time for us to get started, L.A. bails. He said, I can't fuck with you on this record, man. I guess Lowell, he'd played him for Lowell and Lowell and Gerald, and they loved him, loved it, and then threw money at him, made him an offer he couldn't refuse, and I got left ass out. So I wasn't.
Sorry,
I was,
man.
It was nearly a A&R wars, because I was like, I want to beat this brother's ass.
Thank you, man.
So
right.
That was that.
This is probably. This is the episode that I wish was that I wish the Faith Newman episode was. Like, I feel satisfied.
Her episode was great.
She's gonna hate us.
No, she knows. I always tease her about, like, you made the worst QLS episode of all time, right?
It's just the voice, Faith. It's just
The Monica episode was the bomb. Shouts to Monica.
That's your favorite. What's your favorite QLS episode, Ed, so far?
Bootsy was cool.
That was great.
Monica was cool.
You're gonna love the Robert Townsend episode.
Yeah.
That is Robert Townsend, in my opinion, has put the family stand. Jimmy Jam was first.
Yeah, Jam was great. That was great.
But then for me, the Family Stand episode was the Jimmy Jam episode with humor and a lot of salacious, unnecessary A&R slashing. And I pray that Sylvia comes on the show eventually. And then Robert Townsend's episode was an unexpected nice surprise. So. But no, this is equally satisfying, man. I learned so much today, man.
Cool.
Can I just ask one
Yeah.
Roots question?
Yes.
Sure.
So, Ed, in retrospect, as you were watching this ship go by without you, did you ever have any moments where you were like, man, if only they would have signed with me, I would have did da-da-da-da-da, or I would have been had them and so and so and so.
I done told you that 5 minutes after this episode. he would have fought for us.
Yeah, for me, my roots moment, because once again, I wasn't as invested at the time when you were showcasing. That was really Lisa and Kenyatta, and I would have jumped on board had we gotten green lighted the deal, so I would have jumped on board. Just to kind of give you. I'll answer your questions. To give you a little sidebar to digress a minute, but how the whole thing went down when a couple of names were spelled wrong.
Yes,
that ended up being a huge moment for us inside the label, because at Polygram at that time, all business affairs was kind of done centrally out of corporate, and the individual labels didn't have their own business affairs people. Right. And I made so much fucking noise about that.
Somebody got fired. You fired somebody.
Yeah. Well, I didn't fire the person, but one of the business affairs person. And ultimately, what it led to was
whoever you are,
me getting my own business affairs person inside the company, which is a woman called Julie Swidler. And Julie's now the head of business affairs and has been for the last 10 years at Sony globally. So, yeah.
And she crossed every T and dotted every I, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
so I was drugged that we lost you. But to answer your question, where it really resonated with me was when you guys went to England, because I was dealing with Giles a lot in those days.
Yeah.
And then also that how, when you initially blew up, quote unquote blew up, a couple of my friends' kids, white, who were college students in the East, were like, Ed, have you ever heard of the Roots? You ever heard of this band, the Roots?
I'm pretty sure that was me.
So, yeah. There's a lot of that. I was like, I love the way you guys were generating it on your own, because I don't think it was being marketed that way.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. No, it was, I'm not going to, Wendy Goldstein did what was allowed at the time. But, it's almost like literally it's the second we signed, then the crisis started happening. No more Nirvana, no more Aerosmith, no more, Guns N' Roses. And then it's like, we should have went to Polygram. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man.
Happy to be here.
Thank you.
My
man.
pleasure.
Yeah,
My pleasure.